Hello, welcome to Claret and Blue and the Inside BODYMOOR show for Arsenal this weekend. We're doing this live at 6 o'clock. It's 6:02 and the comments are full of people going, "You're late, you're late." If Dan Bardell can be a couple of minutes late, so can we. It's John's fault, basically. Little John Terry, little John Townley. Oh dear, if this wasn't live, all this would be edited out and I'd start over. John, how are you, mate?
I'm not happy with the nickname, to be honest. No, I'm doing fine, thanks, Dan. BODYMOOR today. What's the day yesterday? Thursday yesterday, Wednesday. One of the best performances I've seen Villa put in my lifetime. I know a lot of people have said that, but it's true. So yeah, I'm on cloud nine. To be fair, really looking forward to Saturday night.
Yeah, we're live on YouTube and Facebook, actually. It's been a long time since we've been live on Facebook, so you can get your comments, you can get involved in the comment section with the conversation. Now, we don't normally do these live, but we normally play on a Sunday, so we can film on a Friday evening, post it Saturday. But the game is obviously tomorrow. 24 hours from now, we'll be over halfway through the first half. So we've had to do it live. So a bit all over the place, I expect, but still the same usual format. We've even got an opposition reporter halfway through the show as well, which I recorded earlier this morning, but I'll play that mid-episode. We'll start where we always do, though, with John, with the presser. You've been there at BODYMOOR today speaking to Unai Emery. What was his mood like? Was he buzzing?
I don't think he's ever buzzing, even after the Man City game. He was saying, "Yeah, I'm kind of focused on Arsenal now. Like, it's been half an hour before we won." Yeah, I mean, he was great. He's been in good form, to be fair, this week before the City game as well. The press conference for that one, he was answering all the questions really well. Lots of depth. Went into a lot of detail too, talking about like Leon Bailey and other players. And today was the same. I guess there was less people today. I think because the time of the press conference got moved. It was originally afternoon and it got moved forward to midday. So I think a couple of people might have missed the memo, which isn't good for them. But yeah, he was in good spirits heading into what is an opportunity for Aston Villa to get a record amount of wins in a row. 15, 9 months in the making this record would be. So before I came on slightly late, only about 30 seconds, so wasn't too bad. It could be worse. I was writing a piece about, or at least one of my sentences was something like, I don't know, kind of records have been tumbling under Emery, but this one has been like 9-10 months in the making or something. I need to check that for sure, but it's since March, isn't it? Since the last time Villa, or when this record run, this equal record, equal, what's it? I'm all over the place today. An equal. Finish my sentence, then.
Equaling a club record? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. 14 games.
So it's 14 the record, 15 would make a new record. Is that right?
Yeah, so equaling the club record would be 14. Can you cut that out, or are we live? 120 people watching.
Too late.
Too late. Yeah, it was all good though. Yeah, 9 months in the making with this record will be. So yeah, really looking forward to tomorrow. It will be a really difficult game though, because Arsenal, Man City are the champions, European champions, treble winners. But if you look kind of deeper in the stats, technically this game is probably harder. This is a team who, aren't so reliant on a player like Rodri, I suppose. I mean, maybe that is Declan Rice, but he's obviously fit. And Arsenal have the best away record since last season as well. They've won the most games, scored the most goals, got the most points, all that stuff. So it's literally going to be like, that kind of, I don't know, unmovable objects against, that kind of unstoppable force. And whichever one Villa are and Arsenal are, I don't know, you can make it up yourself. But it's going to be a really interesting game. Certainly one that the neutral, I think, will be looking forward to.
The question here from Tony Cashin, who says, "Do we look leggy?" Now, I was going to ask you whether you thought that maybe how much effort we put into Wednesday might affect tomorrow's game, or there's also the factor of Arsenal played the day before us, so they've got an extra day's rest. Do any of those things matter? I know Emery said something like, "Yeah, that is the case, but we're not going to make excuses," which I do like. I like things like that. I don't want to put down a reason to, if we don't win tomorrow, we say, we lose. I wouldn't want Emery, and he would never do this, to come out and go, "Oh, well, they played before us, but they've had an extra day's rest." That would never happen. He doesn't like excuses. But do you think that is a factor?
Yes, I think it's a factor, more so because of the kind of emotion behind the Man City game as well. I think, to be honest, for large parts of that game, we were controlling it, and I think City were probably running around more than what we were. Arsenal, in terms of their game, it was I mean, it's obviously quite a small, compact pitch, Kenilworth Road, but there was how many goals? Like 7 goals in the game. It was a last-minute winner for them, and they're on a high, so they've probably got a bit of adrenaline going with it as well. Obviously, so do we. So I think that will probably carry us through. Hopefully, in terms of we shouldn't feel leggy against Arsenal. But I do think a little bit, I don't know, a lack of rest potentially. That's something that could catch up with us potentially because, as I say, the emotion behind it. I think physically, I don't think it was so bad, but we were. I don't know how many hours the game is going to be played after the City game, but it's been 1 day of rest, 1 training session today, which was this afternoon, which is why the presser was moved to an early time. So clearly there has been a knock-on effect. This isn't the normal preparation for a game that Emery would like or the players would like. But I think it probably helps that he's saying there's no excuses, and that's exactly what he'll be saying to his players in the dressing room as well. If he came out and said something like, "Oh yeah, the Premier League need to rethink their scheduling," like I know Jurgen Klopp has a lot, and other managers, and to be fair, maybe they've got a point, but I think it probably helps if you just tell your players that it's not a problem, and then they probably react that better. To be honest, as soon as it's kick-off and the Villa Park crowd's getting behind the team and whatnot, like they have been for the last 14 games at home in the league, then I'm sure they'll be fine. Come the 70th minute, depending on what the scoreline is, maybe there'll be some, a need for a couple of changes that otherwise wouldn't need to be made. But no, I don't think it'll play a massive factor, to be honest. And yeah, I'm glad Emery said no excuses as well.
I can't wait to see what the atmosphere is going to be like. We've spoken a little bit this week about what would it be like if we were to beat Man City.
Yeah.
If we'd have lost on Wednesday, it's still been a great atmosphere Saturday because it's still a big opportunity. But to have won Wednesday, this belief of if we can beat them, we can beat anybody. So it should be a raucous atmosphere. We are going to talk a little bit more about Man City a bit later in the show specifically. Talk to me a little bit about the quote about the Leicester comparisons. Explain that one.
Yeah, he was asked about, I mean, I think we've all kind of seen that stat about 15 games, 32 points. It's the same position that Leicester were in back in 2015, was it now? Obviously, the year that we got relegated, so yeah, 2015. And Emery, he hasn't really kind of paid attention to any kind of chats about Champions League necessarily, like a league title. I don't actually think he's taken that question seriously. But it was the follow-up of, a fan's okay to dream about that. And he was like, yeah, for sure. Like, let's always dream. He said, we have to dream always. I'm dreaming, and sometimes my dreams are very important for me as it's an inspiration to get my best.
I wonder what Unai Emery dreams about, like, away from football, like his actual dreams on a night. I wonder what Unai Emery thinks about just football. Tactics.
I haven't thought about that yet, Dan. Maybe you have. So I think that's, again, kind of take the quotes how you will, but I like that because it's about him. That's him basically saying that, why limit ourselves in a way? If we're trying to get to our best, why cap it and say, yeah, this season we do want to get Europa League? And I know I've gone on record and said that a few weeks ago, although, Champions League for me is the kind of the, everything for us at the moment. That would take us to the next level, wouldn't it? And we've had that conversation before, probably done a podcast on it as well. But Emery won't say, yeah, we're going to want to get top 4. Yeah, we're going to want to win the league or whatever. He's never going to say those words because he doesn't want to cap what can be achieved this season, next season, the years to follow. All he said that he wants to win silverware. He said he wants to play in the Champions League. Of course he has, but I don't think, there's any cap. He wants to, aspire to be the best that he can be, and why put a number on that in terms of a league position. And he said as well that he won't be looking at the league or paying much interest in terms of the standings until about March. He didn't say March, but he said game 30, game 32, which is around then. Yeah. Some, 5, 6, 7 games before the end of the season, which again, I think is fair. I think he did that last season too, when Villa were kind of knocking on the door of Europe. But were we really going to get it? I think we only really paid attention until we were 6 or 7 games before the end, and we thought, okay, actually we can make a fist of this if we do certain things and take it to the last 3 games or whatever it was. Luckily this season we have a full 38 calendar, so again that kind of taps into that we don't know what Aston Villa can achieve in a full season yet, which again is very exciting.
Just a thought off the top of my head. This is usually probably the thing that kind of get cut out because I don't know where I'm going to go with this. You know how you always say, like, you'll start looking at the league table after 19 games, after you've played everybody once?
Yeah.
I wonder how Emery assesses it based off past seasons. Because, last year we talked about, like, how there was a time where it was like, oh, we're not a contender for Europe. And then all of a sudden it was like, no, we want to qualify. We want to finish top 7. I wonder when that was. Is it game week 30? Or is that when Emery starts paying attention, like the last 2 months of the season?
Well, that's what he said. I mean, to be honest, I think, obviously you're going to pay attention to the table as you move on, but I don't think he's going to, kind of fall into the, okay, now we can push for Champions League. And he basically said he's not going to tell his players that this is the target up until there's a genuine, like okay, if we win these next 2, then we have 5 left or something until there's a general path to it. I think at the moment it is all a bit up in the air. Look at Tottenham; they've lost a few players and they lose 4 of the last 5 or something like that. They've won in 4, 5, 6 games. Got Newcastle next as well, so your season can change quite dramatically very quickly. So I do agree with his, I won't say caution, but I guess it is quite cautious because you just don't know. You don't want to apply pressure to your players at the moment. He hasn't done anything that would, for the players to think, oh, we have to do certain things this season. Let's just continue as we're going because it's working. I think that's probably what he's thinking. This set of players, work in a particular way. And so far he's found how to get the best out of them. Why kind of deviate your management style now and all of a sudden say, yeah, you know what, we want Champions League this season. I think everyone knows that Villa want Champions League this season. And it is probably attainable if we finish above 2 of Manchester United, Tottenham or Newcastle. That's the way I look at it. And judging by the first 15 games of the season, there's every chance that can happen.
Yeah. Let's move on then to the injury update. And I feel like there's probably not huge amounts to say in this part of the show, largely due to the fact that they trained after the press conference and they will train again. Well, they won't train again tomorrow, will they? But it's obviously 24 hours till the game. Things can happen. Things might have happened in that training session that we won't know about. Fingers crossed they haven't. Is there much to report here in terms of the fitness?
Well, not specific names necessarily, but we've had it for a couple of weeks now where Emery said that he's kind of monitoring a few things and he needs to be responsible. I don't know who the exact players are, but I mean, Diaby's been on the bench a couple of times, albeit Leon Bailey's deserved to start ahead of him, to be fair. I don't know which players exactly know, but there are a few that are kind of just carrying pains, small injuries, and it's his job, Emery's job, to kind of work out who plays when, I suppose, and can he risk certain things at certain points. I think it's very helpful now that we have Moreno and Ramsey back, put it that way, because we would be going pretty thin if it was those 2 that were remaining out and a couple of other players that had to fall out of the team as well. But yeah, I think it's just one of those. We'll see what the team sheet says on Saturday night, and hopefully it's as good as it can be. Arsenal have no injury concerns either after Luton, which is good for them. I know they've had a couple of injuries, as have everyone this season, let's be honest. So yeah, it's a very jam-packed schedule at the moment, so Emery's just trying to be responsible with how he does things. You've obviously got games like Burnley at home and Sheffield United at home, and with all due respect to those teams, they will probably go down this season, and Villa should beat them without a couple of players. So you wonder, as you're looking at Man City, United, Brentford away as well, those games are particularly important, I think. And he'll want his, I don't want to say best players because it is a whole squad effort, but he'll want his most preferable 11, shall I say, for those games. And maybe can he rest a couple for Sheffield and Burnley? Although no games are given, I think Villa have enough quality now, and they're that team that if you are drawing with 30 minutes to go, you can probably turn the dial a bit and kind of do what you need to do late on, I suppose, even though that will be a bit stressful in those particular matches.
Yeah. Let's go away from match day then. For those that don't usually tune into this show, this is the part where we can talk about something that isn't related to the upcoming fixture, Villa Arsenal. Now, I don't want to do like a random topic here because I haven't really thought of anything. So I want to go backwards and talk about Man City, just because why the hell not? Why not talk about that again? And I don't want to do this for any more than a couple of minutes because it will turn into the Man City show. But we did the post-match show at 11:45 on Wednesday night, and we finished at 12:30. I disconnected for 10 minutes and Matt just had to waffle on his own for a bit, which was quite funny. But we speculated at the end of that, like, I wonder how John Townley's doing. Like, obviously you do a hell of a lot of work, but the night that Bertrand Traoré scored a last-minute winner against Leicester, you were highly emotional. So how were you Wednesday night? How were you feeling?
I was good, thanks. I didn't sleep till 4.
Wow.
A mix of reasons, work, adrenaline, the whole lot. I thought, well, we need to do a lot here, but yeah, I was obviously buzzing with the rest of us. I was singing the songs after the end of the game, and yeah, I mean, I probably shouldn't because I need to remain professional, but you need to get giddy sometimes. We're real football fans, aren't we? So, yeah, it was just one of those games where going into it, I was a bit cautious of writing things like, this is probably the best time or the best opportunity that Villa have to beat City. And I actually feel like they not probably could, but there's like almost a 50-50 chance. I felt very confident going into it. But of course, it's a team that are, I don't know, the best in the world, should we say, under arguably the greatest manager of all time, one of the top strikers that there'll probably ever be in world football and Erling Haaland. You can't go into that game saying, yeah, I think Villa will win 2-0, should we say? But it should have been 4. So yeah, just marvelous performance, and I think to a man, you can't pick a fault. You just couldn't, and it's one of those games where you go back and you just think, well, no one made a mistake, but it was that good. You almost thought, well, I can remember or recall 5 or 6 times that Carlos did this, Conza did that, Luis did this, and you replay the game in your mind, and everyone's just pulled out 10 out of 10, and all. My play ratings maybe didn't reflect that. I didn't give everyone a 10. I think I had like a share of, yeah, shut up. I need to give it right. Can I explain myself? So a 10 in the world of football writing, a 10 is an Ollie Watkins hat trick against whoever. A 10 is a kind of a complete, this is like your best performance of the season kind of level. And I thought, well, no one's on a 10. I know that sounds harsh because they played that good, but you kind of, so I kind of based everyone on a 9, and then I put a couple of under 9 to an 8 because I thought, well, Bailey played better than this player just, and then rethinking it, I'm thinking, well, actually, it's probably not true. I should have given them all 9s, maybe a couple of 10s to be fair. But I don't know. I've got a live blog to run, reports to do, ratings to write. You saw more of the game than me, so it's a position that I didn't envy Ash when he was doing it last season and the seasons before as well, because you just get stick off it. And I don't read about it, but I've probably got my fair share of messages. But yeah, anyway, fantastic game, fantastic result. But it was the performance, wasn't it, for me? It was the result is marvelous. It's a 3 points that not many clubs will get this season. But yeah, the performance for me was like, okay, we can actually do that against anybody in world football. We really can, and that's why Arsenal is, what looked relatively daunting is now if Villa get the first goal, as they have done in most games, they'll win the game. I mean, we're the only team now who, when they've taken a lead or have been in a winning position, they haven't surrendered it, and they've gone on to win the game. But yeah, Arsenal are a top outfit, a team that seem to just win games out of nowhere. Like a Luton game, they find a way, and they have the best away record since last season as well. So that'll be particularly difficult.
I'd give everyone 10s on Wednesday. Just if that was like a difficult job and you got loads to do, I'd just kind of like, I can make the player ratings quick. I'll just go and everyone gets a 10 and everyone will be buzzing with that. No. It's one of those games, isn't it, where everyone had to be a metaphorical 10 out of 10 to get the result. It's a team performance more than anything, rather than an individual.
Yeah, but I almost felt like, and again, I should have given everyone 10s, really, shouldn't I? But it was like everyone needed to do a 10 out of 10. But then I felt Villa gave more than that. Everyone was like I can't say it, but everyone was like a 12. You know what I mean? Even though I gave everyone 8 and 9, but they were that good, and then above, weren't they? Because they just outplayed them, they outthought them, outrun them, outthought them. The whole lot, and just like watching him do his thing as well. Like again, it's just mad. Like I think Harry Maguire got player of the month this month or last month, and I think he's actually done okay this month. But come on, like every really,
Torres manager of the month as well.
Yeah, it's just like, they've done better than what people probably think they have and whatever, but you can't, after watching that City game, and I know this was probably done before the City game, but I'm just thinking those players have played so well for such a long time now. Like Pau Torres was doing everything and more. Like I know Carlos was the one kind of dealing with Haaland physically, but there was a couple of times when Torres would come in with this big slide tackle, and you're just thinking like, Jesus, these players are playing on like their top level that I haven't seen this season, and they've been very good already. So yeah, it was just a real brilliant night, and something that I don't think we'll forget for a long, long time.
Yeah, we didn't do score predictions for Man City. We've predicted every Premier League game so far, but we didn't do a specific preview for Man City because you weren't on Monday's show. I did it with Matt. We did speak about it. Matt said he would have been disappointed with anything less than 3 points from Man City and Arsenal. And we were like, don't be silly. That's like a difficult task to get 3 points out of these two. And we've done that, regardless of what we do tomorrow. I had us down to, I actually thought we'd lose Wednesday, but I think we'll beat Arsenal. It's how I saw the two games at the start of the week. Now we've beat Man City. I'm sticking with the fact that we'll beat Arsenal and we'll get 6 points this week. That's genuinely what I think. Just the way you beat Man City, I know like people who didn't see the game and have literally just seen the scoreline will go Villa 1, Man City 0. smash and grab. Like that must have a lucky
Yeah.
goal deflection. It was a deflection to be fair, but like a scrappy goal or a penalty or something. Like they were back to the wall and got a goal and nicked it. We dominated them in every single metric of football that you can measure, whether it's XG or shots on target or whatever it is. Everything Villa did was better than them, and that wasn't Man City having an off day or not being very good. We made them be that. We made them uncomfortable and got in their faces. I think Man City are a better outfit than Arsenal, despite how the league table is. I think the same thing you do to Man City, you do to Arsenal. You put them under pressure. You make them uncomfortable from minute one. You get on David Raya on every set piece, get McGinn fumbling into him. You make him hate playing that Villa Park for an afternoon. And if you do that, I genuinely think we'll win. And that is the way to do it. We'll talk a little bit later about the specifics of that, though. Should we do the opposition view now and have a little break for ourselves?
Yeah, crack on. Okay,
so opposition view time then. I caught up with Tom Canton from Football.London earlier today, who's a football writer, an Arsenal fan as well. I think it's a 6 or 7 minute clip that we're going to play in this live stream. So me and John are going to disappear for a little bit and we'll come back when Tom has had his say on tomorrow's affair. Much for joining us. You're the Arsenal reporter and Arsenal fan as well from Football.London. I'm here to ask you 5 questions ahead of a huge game at Villa Park this Saturday. The first of which is about the title challenge. We did you a favour, didn't we, Wednesday by beating Manchester City. What is your take on the title race this year? Have you got enough to win it? And are Villa in that conversation as well, do you think?
Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? And yeah, thank you very much for your exploits in midweek. It was very much appreciated because, you know, Arsenal this season, I think, have learned lessons from last year. Last year, you saw Arsenal kind of blitz at the beginning of the season and picked up a lot of points and opened quite a significant gap as well. But at the end, didn't have the resources to keep that going and ultimately wasn't sustainable in doing that. Whereas this season, Arsenal haven't necessarily been blowing teams away. They have in some cases. We've seen the Champions League. They beat Lens 6-0 and PSV 4-0. We beat Bournemouth away 4-0. Sheffield United at home 5-0. You know, so there's been some games in which we've done quite well to blow teams away, but there's been a few games where it's been quite close and with late goals like we saw against Luton in midweek, the Manchester United game, narrowly beating Man City 1-0, of course, at home. And it is that Man City win that was different to last season, of course, which I think shows Arsenal's credentials this season as a side that can sustain a challenge as they build and grow this season with the extra resources they've got from some of their signings like Declan Rice, of course, and Kai Havertz, who's particularly on good form with 3 goals in his last 3 starts. So, yeah, I do think Arsenal are in a much better place, and I think they're showing evidence of that.
What about Villa? Can Villa be involved in that conversation realistically?
It's tough, I think, because last season I wasn't saying Arsenal were necessarily in title race until really far down the line because you have to show those credentials. So whilst Aston Villa are there, I think that it wouldn't be unfair to say that targeting a Champions League qualification spot would be a sensible ambition for Aston Villa, and not even more than sensible, but it's ambitious, but I think it's definitely achievable. We've seen, obviously, how preemptive people can be putting teams like Tottenham as title challengers and how quickly things can change and fall away from you. I'm not just saying that because I'm biased, but genuinely as a case study, you can see how quickly things can change for a team. So I'm cautious of saying Villa are in it, but they're certainly up there as a respectable side that can nick points off the top teams.
I've got to ask you about the goalkeeper situation, the Raya versus Ramsdale stuff. Obviously, from our perspective, we feel like we've got one of the best goalkeepers in the league, Emi Martinez. Thank you for him. What's your take on the goalkeeper situation at Arsenal? Do you agree with this kind of narrative that you need 2 good goalkeepers for competition, or has it kind of blown up in Arteta's face a little bit, do you think?
Yeah, I think that, you know, I've been very praising of a lot of the decisions that Arteta has made that's led Arsenal to this point, but I do think this is something of a misstep. You know, I have no issue with Arsenal looking to upgrade upon certain players in their team, and I actually do think that Raya is a slightly better goalkeeper than Aaron Ramsdale.
Agreed.
I think stylistically he fits Arsenal a lot better with what he wants from a goalkeeper to do from a distribution standpoint. And if you ask anybody, how good is Aaron Ramsdale? How good is David Raya? You would say, watch both last season to get a good idea of what they're like as goalkeepers. But this season, Arteta, I think, has created a dynamic by buying a goalkeeper that's only slightly better than Ramsdale, whereby there's enough competition between the two to put extra pressure on both of them when they play, that it's created, because goalkeepers beyond any other player you probably want the least amount of pressure on them, the least amount of expectation on them, because it's such a high, strained, tense position to play where any mistake is punished by a goal. Whereas anywhere else on the field, a mistake can be covered by other players. You might miss a shot if you're a striker, you might make a mistake in turning over possession in midfield. But if you're a goalkeeper and make a mistake, you concede, and that can cost you points. And it has almost done that a few times for both goalkeepers this season. So I think that Arteta has created a problem that didn't necessarily have to happen. I have no issue with him buying Raya, but I think you have to move on Ramsdale in the same window, and I think that will probably look to happen in one of the next 2 windows. I think January will come too soon. There is interest in him, and it is growing, and Arsenal will hope to make a significant fee off him as well.
Let's talk about strengths and weaknesses for both sides very quickly. The obvious answer for where Villa can exploit Arsenal does feel like the goalkeeper department. Whichever one of them plays, I feel like you can get at them, you can hit an effort from long range and maybe cause a bit of a panic, put a corner on the goalkeeper and cause a bit of a fumble like we saw at Luton on Tuesday. Is that the case where Villa should be targeting the keeper, or are the other areas where Villa can get at you?
Yeah, without a doubt. As soon as you can take a shot at goal, you should be taking one. That's what you should always be recommended to do when you're going up against a keeper that is not in their best form, that has got nerves. You want to put pressure on them. You want to get men on them, especially during crosses and those set-piece opportunities. I think that is where, obviously, Villa will be very, very dangerous against Arsenal. Arsenal do have a lot of height, and that has helped them in both ends of the field, both scoring in midweek, Declan Rice, of course, and defending as well. Saliba, Gabriel have been fantastic in that regard. Even Kai Havertz and other tall, forward-thinking players get back and do their job defensively when it comes to defending set pieces. But it is still certainly something of a weakness. That said, Raya is actually known for being a better goalkeeper regarding collection of crosses. It's just, again, this situation that I think has affected his own confidence, his own thought processes and decision-making that's maybe affected what we've seen from him so far this season. I think in regards to, obviously, our left-hand side, the way in which we set up, the way in which Zinchenko moves into midfield, that often leads to the perception that there's a weakness on that side because you can get in behind Zinchenko. This is true, but actually, I think it's a misconception to suggest that Arsenal's left-back position leads to vulnerabilities, because actually Arsenal don't play with a back four, really, even though he is quote-unquote a left-back. He's actually more of an extra midfielder when he plays. And so Gabriel, his job is to be both a left-sided centre-back and a left-back. But if you do double up, if you do get a lot of men down that right-hand side, you can create overloads, which cause problems for Arsenal. So I'd say the 2 areas are obviously our left-hand side, which is not as much of a problem as some people like to say, but also I think the set pieces and crosses into the box and getting men on the goalkeeper. Let's
flip that question then. Where should Villa be worried from an Arsenal perspective? Who should we be keeping an eye on to stop that player and Villa have got a chance?
Ultimately, the cliche is that it's all over for Arsenal. It used to be that it was Bukayo Saka for obvious reasons. Back again, it used to be when we had Olivier Giroud up top, you have to be afraid of our height in the box and things like that. But now Arsenal have constructed a squad that's got so many threats from so many different positions. Our biggest creator used to be Mesut Ozil, so if teams put 2 players on him, you could usually stop that creativity. Martin Odegaard's a different type of attacking midfielder because he has threat from both outside the box with his shooting and has scored a number of high-profile goals from outside the box at Newcastle, at Spurs, against I think 2 goals against Spurs, in fact 1 home, 1 away. So he's scoring against these big sides and probably is one of the best long-range shooters in the Premier League, to be fair. You've also got his creativity if you manage to stop the shooting. You've got Kai Havertz, who's now on form and is moving really intelligently into the box and producing when there was so much criticism of him at the beginning of the campaign. Jesus is an unpredictable centre forward because he creates, he drifts from either side of the field. He was in midweek throwing the ball to Bukayo Saka for a key pass to get then Martinelli in for a goal. And as I mentioned there, both wingers involved in that first, threats in behind. They love to cut inside and obviously shoot, but both can use their other foot. Saka more so has really developed his right foot in the last couple of seasons. You see him dinking crosses in with his right foot or driving cutbacks as well. And then, of course, Declan Rice is there, who gets forwards too and has been in the box, or he's shot from outside the box and been a threat. So you can't count him out either. So there's so much threat. And also, I think the big change this season is noticing Arsenal's deeper crossing. And what I mean by that is where you cross from slightly further back from the 18-yard box rather than, alongside it. And those crosses have really helped Arsenal to get some clutch goals in really important moments. That's something to look out for as well.
Just to end this segment, can I get a score prediction from you? Are you willing to put an actual result on the line?
Yeah, I think it's got goals this game because I think both teams are capable of scoring. I think both teams are going to go to try and win this game. There's nothing cagey about it. They both need the points. You'd argue that Arsenal need the win more so than Villa, and Villa might be very happy with the draw in this case. But I still think that both teams will certainly be going for the victory. And and I think that will lead to an open game as such. So I'm going to go 3-2 Arsenal, if not 2-1, but I'll have to be optimistic and head.
An opposition reporter on from any game this season where they've not backed their own side to win. So, of course, you've gone for that. I'll save my own score prediction for later in the show. But, Tom, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and all the best on the weekend. But not
Pleasure.
really. Right. We're back. Wrong layout. There we go. Thanks to Tom for joining me and earlier me for doing that little mini preview. Tom said there that Villa fans might be more happy than a point than Arsenal would be. Would you be happy with a point tomorrow?
I don't think I'll be. I can't say I'd be happy with a point before any home game. If you're winning 14 in a row, why settle for less, especially if you're going to beat City and absolutely batter them as well? No, I wouldn't take a point if you offered it to me now, Dan. I think as well, because we beat City as well, you've already got 3 points out of the 6, if that makes sense. If we drew to City or whatever it may be, then you'd be saying, I don't know how to put it, but I wouldn't take 2 points out of City and Arsenal. And I think that's what Matt was trying to allude to when he said that he wants to win one of them, because obviously 3 points is better than 2, even though you avoid defeating both. So, yeah, going in tomorrow, I wouldn't say I'm confident we're going to win, but I'm confident, or at least optimistic in every home game that we're going to be playing this season. So, yeah, hoping for a win.
Okay. We're going to do combined 11 now. Now, this is something we've done as standalone videos in the last couple of weeks for Tottenham, and we did one for Manchester City as well. We were going to do a standalone video for Arsenal, but we've simply not had the time to do it. So I thought we'd just do it as a little segment during this show instead. Now, exactly the same format. I've got a side from who scored, and you've built a side as well. Now, we're not going to go through it position by position because it would take us 15 minutes, because that's what we've done before. So we're just going to do the whole 11 in one go. Yours versus the one I've got. Would you like to go with yours first? Talk me through it, and I'll put a graphic on screen. If you just read the 11 first, and then I'll come back to our faces. So this is your side for Arsenal and Villa combined.
In goal, obviously Martinez. A back three. Look at all of those Villa players. Come on. Pau Torres, left centre back. Saliba, I can't leave out. And then Konsa, I couldn't leave out as well. I think they're very similar players. Obviously, Saliba is probably one of the best centre backs in the world, if not the. I don't know at the moment, potentially. Konsa, I think, is getting there. But he's kind of a watered down version of Saliba, if that makes sense. And that is a huge compliment in itself. But yeah, that's my back three. Declan Rice is, with Rodri, is the best DM in the world, I think. I looked at the Arsenal midfielders and I thought, well, I put McGinn and Luiz in there. You can see it there, can't you? And then I put Odegaard ahead of them, Saka on the right. I put Moreno on the left because, not that this team is going to play on a pitch, but I just thought, well, in terms of balance, left-sided players, to be fair, Zinchenko's probably got a shout to play that position as well, but this is an Aston Villa podcast. So, yeah, I have 4 Arsenal players. 4 Arsenal players, 7 Villa players. Obviously, Watkins up front, ahead of Jesus and Nketiah. Who else they have, I don't know. I think those are the main 2 strikers they have. 7 Villa, 4 Arsenal. I think that's something that Arsenal fans would be furious at. So I'm glad this isn't a standalone video, Dan. But I think it's relatively fair. Who are the midfielders in Arsenal's team that would get over Luiz and McGinn? I don't know.
I don't think they would.
You've got Partey in there. He's not really playing at the moment anyway. So I'm actually pretty happy with that team. In terms of centre-backs, you also Gabriel, who Tom says is a kind of a key player for them. But I think I have Torres and Moreno in every team that I've kind of built in terms of a combined 11, because that left side for me is they're just 2 players that can do something that a lot of players in the Premier League can't in terms of their own position. So, I'm pretty set on that team.
I actually thought this would be a really interesting one to do as a standalone video because we'd have more time to discuss it. But considering that Arsenal are top of the league and they challenged for the title last year and they're challenging for the title again this year, I do feel like the sides are really evenly matched. I like you normally do, started. I've not done a graphic or anything for mine, and I'm going to talk through the who scored one in a second. I started with the Villa team and then thought, which Arsenal players get into that? That's how I did it rather than the other way around. I think you make a case for Rice and Saka, possibly Odegaard. And I'm thinking, not really bothered about the rest. Maybe Saliba, but I don't think I'll play back 3, so I'd have keep Konsa and Torres together. So I'm thinking
Saliba has to be in there, mate.
I'd keep the Villa players, to be honest, if I was doing it. I was massively
to be fair, I've done the same thinking as you, but then I thought, well, Saliba has to be in it, so I'll just do a back 3 and then take out a right back. That's basically my thinking. So we're on the same way. I think most people would probably go with something similar to what we've thought of there.
Yeah. Somebody asked in the comments, no Ben White.
Yeah, that was the only other thing I thought of. But then it kind of affects the team going kind of in the other positions, and yeah.
Yeah,
Arsenal fans will probably have Ben White in there, to be fair, play back four and have Jorginho over McGinn. So
Arsenal fans would have 7 or 8 Arsenal players, I think. Obviously, everyone's biased towards their own team. Was there ever an argument of Raya or Ramsdale getting in there over Martinez?
Didn't think about it, mate. No, it's a strange one, that goalkeeper situation. I personally don't particularly rate Aaron Ramsdale as a goalkeeper. I think he's quite good.
Prefer Raya with the two.
Yeah, and to be fair, I actually think Raya at Brentford was an excellent goalkeeper, and I put him much higher in terms of Premier League goalkeepers ranked than Ramsdale. But then I don't know what it is, nerves, whatever it may be, but he's making mistakes that he weren't making at Brentford.
Yeah.
So Thomas Wright put lump corners onto him, whatever it may be. Louise shoot from his corners. I think there's high winds tomorrow as well, which will be interesting.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, very interesting.
I'd check the weather here.
Nice little weather-based stat there. I think it's interesting what Tom said, that to assess both goalkeepers and look at them last season. Ramsdale was pretty good last year, and so was Raya, whereas this year they've both been pants. This kind of whole situation on 2 goalkeepers of an equal standard. If you say that both goalkeeper is a 7 or 8 out of 10 as a standard, there's no improvement. How do you pick the best one out of those 2? And Arteta's made this problem for himself, I think, and the fact that we have Martinez and it's nothing of no concern. Having a very good goalkeeper and an okay backup is the norm, isn't it? You don't have, you never see 2 good goalkeepers at a club ever.
The only thing I'd say about that is that, again, like whenever I was at Brentford, I don't recall him making any mistakes. I think he was just very good. Ramsdale made mistakes at Bournemouth, and he made mistakes when he first signed for Arsenal. So for me, I just don't think he's an elite goalkeeper anyway. I'm not saying Raya is, but if Raya takes out his mistakes, then all of a sudden you have a keeper that you can depend on. I know it sounds easy, but I don't think that'll be a massive issue moving forward for them. We have the best goalkeeper in the world, though, so it's not a problem for Aston Villa.
I've seen some Arsenal fans down social media saying that Martinez is not that good. I mean, he's only worth 30 odd million or something, which is just so untrue.
Yeah, I think it's because every time he plays Arsenal, he probably has his worst game of the season.
Well, that's also true,
yeah.
I mean, the mad fact is if Martinez played for Arsenal last season, they'd have won the league. Okay,
probably.
I'm going to talk through the who scored 11 now, which probably throws up a couple of surprises. It's a 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3. We've got Martinez in goal, a back 4 of Cash, Konsa, Gabriel, and Dean. No Saliba, no Pau Torres, no Ben White at right back. Rice and Louise as a midfield 2, McGinn off the left, Saka off the right, and Odegaard, like you, behind Watkins, which I think again is a decently balanced team. It looks okay, but a couple of omissions in there that I would have. Again, Moreno isn't going to make it into a statistical 11 because he's not played any minutes to get a rating, whereas Dean obviously has and has played very well. McGinn could obviously play in the middle. You could move Saka around. You could swap Cash for somebody, but yeah, two decent enough teams there, I think, from who scored and your brain. Right. What are the comments saying?
Isn't it mad? Sorry, 2 days ago we beat Man City 1 at Villa Park, outplayed them, smashed them to pieces, although it was only 1-0, should have won more. We're nearly top of the league. We've made the best start ever, and now we're putting more Villa players in an Arsenal team that were winning the league for like, I don't know, 6 months last season, and it's just mad, like the world we're living in right now as Villa fans. But
well, to be fair, every time we've done this combined 11 thing, even the statistical team, I'm really
that's my point.
They always back up as well. It's not just us being biased.
No, that's what I mean. Maybe there's a bit of bias in kind of, in terms of the stats, whatever it may be. But I'm not being an idiot or whatever when I pick my team or when the stats are doing their thing. Like, it's the thing
you're
that
not doing it for clickbait. You're not doing it to get a reaction.
No, because it's not even a single video. I'm just putting the players on the pitch that I think will be better. And yeah, it's just a bit crazy, to be honest. Kind of where we've come from, not even in the last year, but the improvement we've made since we lost 4-2, the last game that we lost at Villa Park in the league back in February. It's just crazy, the ride that we've been on.
I think the next time we do a combined 11, I'm just looking at the fixtures now, will probably be Man United. And to be honest, we might as well just do it now and say full of Villa 11, to be honest. I don't think I'd take any Man United player.
Would you take any Man United player? Can I quickly have a think?
Bruno? I mean, I hate him, but he's...
That's it, though, isn't it? I think it was a different player. If it was a different player with the output, I'd take him. But because it's Bruno and he's the way that he is, don't want him near the dressing room. Do you know what I mean?
No.
So
Honestly, we'll get to it obviously in a couple of weeks when we play them. It's Boxing Day, isn't it, Man United? I think we'll probably do one for then. We've got Brentford and Sheffield United between them. I don't think we can sit here and put a Brentford Villa 11 together, and we certainly couldn't do a Sheffield United Villa one. So maybe Man United the next time we'll bring the combined 11 back if people want to see it. Right, let's move on to where are we next? Predicted 11. Let's talk about some reality rather than a hypothetical team. If you're picking the team of what you think Emery will do tomorrow night, what would you go for?
It's difficult because, again, we don't know the team news exactly who is completely fit, who Emery might want to risk and who he won't want to risk. So I've kind of saved the long conversation. I went with unchanged and then Digne, Moreno. I think Moreno might come back in just because Digne's played a lot of football. And Moreno against a team, obviously, in Arsenal, who played only a few days ago as well. Maybe that could be a difference maker in the match. I don't know. But I'd have thought probably unchanged, just based off the level of performance. Again, they might be a bit tired or whatnot, but you wouldn't change that team if it was 7 days later, if that makes sense. Maybe he'll change it 2 days later if there's tiredness in the squad, which there appears to be, judging by his comments. So I don't know exactly, but I would have gone unchanged as my kind of prediction of what he'll do.
What about that right-hand side for Arsenal with Saka? How do you defend against that? Do you go with Dean, who's obviously played well and in form and is the better defender probably of Dean and Moreno, but Moreno's obviously got the pace to track back. Again, obviously, because it's only been a couple of days, Dean played well in such a brilliant win, so you don't change the winning team and all that, but Moreno possibly has a case to come in and go up against Saka effectively.
Yeah, again, I think you've almost got to try and defend Saka, not in terms of defending, if that sounds stupid, but be wise. The offside trap I'm talking about. When can we jump up, catch players offside? When can we keep the ball and, kind of limit how they move the ball across the pitch to Saka, stuff like that. I think it's, if you're talking about a one-on-one situation and Saka's in the space, well, then that's already the issue, if that makes sense. I think you're stopping by limiting his supply. Goes for the same with the players. The only thing I would say is that Odegaard tends to kind of drift towards Saka's side. I remember the Arsenal game last season and he kept drifting towards Saka and there was always space. They were just making space, and that is something that I am a bit fearful of tomorrow. But I don't think, in terms of how Villa play, I don't think there's anything that I can see that automatically makes me think, oh, there's no way that Saka will have an involvement in the game, or Odegaard or whoever. I think we're just going to be playing a very good team, and thankfully, so are we. So let's kind of try and just go toe-to-toe with them. Let's not kind of fear them. Be respectful, of course, and be cautious about what we're doing. But ultimately, we're a good team as well. So how can we go on the front foot and try and control the matches as much as they would like to as well?
Yeah, just because it's the game against City was only a couple of days ago, there's temptation for Moreno, for someone like Ramsey to start maybe. Yeah. Diaby, if he's not carrying some kind of knock, obviously he's been on the bench, just for that freshness. But how would you change the side that just put that performance together at Villa Park? It's almost like we talk a lot, don't we, about how Emery prepares for games, whether they're home or away, and he'll look at the last game they played at that venue to kind of prepare for the next one. Everything that kind of came together to beat Man City, it's obviously not as simple as just say, just do that again, because it's two very different opponents. But everything you've kind of like bred together to make that happen, the atmosphere, that 11, that performance level, if you can do those things again, obviously with the tactical variations between City and Arsenal, it can kind of create those similar circumstances again, like this laboratory environment, just like do this and do this and do that, and you might get the same outcome. So I'm so tempted just to say unchanged, but I just worry whether fitness and tiredness might come into it a little bit.
Yeah, possibly so. And to be fair, to have Jacob Ramsey, Alex Moreno, Diaby, those players on the bench against City that can now come in with fresh legs, that's it's mad. Diaby, your summer signing, who has been very good, by the way. We're not knocking him when we're saying that he'd be on the bench or anything. To have him, to be able to call on him, Jacob Ramsey, who for me was our best player in the final games of last season. There's a lot to kind of look towards in this Villa team, and kind of, there's reason to suggest that they can go toe-to-toe with Arsenal, even though they might be a bit tired after the City game. And I'm optimistic we can get a win. I'm going to feel optimistic and confident in every game that we play at home. And let's not forget, these two teams are the best two teams in the division. Potentially Liverpool's there as well. But we've played Liverpool away now, haven't we? And we probably need to do a job on them. Kind of a revenge mission, I suppose, next year. But now you're looking at it and thinking, well, if we can beat Man City, if we can compete against Arsenal, which I'm sure we will at least compete, if whether we lose or draw, we'll be in the game for sure. Those are now your kind of 2 hardest games as such. Every other game is very different, and I don't know, maybe Man City trying to come out and play football helps us in some way. I don't know. Very different game to playing, I don't know, a team that will sit back like Wolves or something. But those 2 games in a week, in the space of 3 days, your hardest home games out of the way already. So that's something again to feel confident about, I think, even after the game, whatever the result may be.
Yeah. We're going to do score predictions in a second, and I will ask the comments as well. If you want to get your score predictions in, I'll read some out. I've been flagging some comments throughout the show that I want to just quickly read out. I think there's 10 that I just want to go through. You can interject at any point and get involved. 2 recent ones as we're still talking about team news. Jason says Emery isn't sentimental. He's methodical and will do exactly what he feels he needs to do to win that game, which I fully agree with. An interesting point here that I've not thought about, but it's such common sense from Brett. Wednesday to Saturday is exactly the same as Thursday to Sunday, but there's no travelling. We'll be fine. Yeah, exactly. When you think about it, that's true, isn't it?
No, absolutely. But I just think there's a mental toll with the Man City game. I think there was so much about it, and I think it's a bit different to beating Alkmaar or it's a really good point though. I think it's certainly something that I've heard no one say, and it is completely true. I just think there's a mental side to it as well. Beating City, I think there's so much adrenaline. I doubt the players slept more than 4 hours on that night. So, yeah, I think we'll be okay though. I don't think tiredness will play a part ultimately.
No, I hope not. 2 comments about Arteta. James says Arteta in the stands is big for us, and likewise Graham. Arteta's pitchside ban has come at a perfect time. Do you agree with that? Is that a good thing? I mean, I can't stand Arteta prancing around on the touchline, getting involved in the 4th officials here and all that kind of stuff. So for my benefit of not having to sit near him and look at him, I'm pretty pleased. But is him not being there actually a bad thing in some ways? Because he's so highly emotional that if the game is going Villa's way, you can kind of do with him losing his head a little bit, because that translates onto the pitch, I think.
I would put it down to I don't think it helps Arsenal. I'd put it that way, because I think it helps them to see their manager be animated and kind of he's kicking every ball that's on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? It's I think it's certainly someone that they look towards for motivation and whatever it may be when the game is entering its final minutes. I think they've scored the most goals in the last few minutes of the games they've played this season, or whatever the stat is, I don't know. But they're never out of games, and I do think that is because Arteta is giving them, though, I don't know, whether it be information or the same motivation to kind of keep going in a match. So I do think it helps Villa that he's not there, because I think it's probably a bad thing for Arsenal that he's not. So yeah, whether it'll have a massive impact, probably not, but football's a game of fine margins, and certainly something that will help, even if it's only kind of a small fraction.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Where else do we want to go? Roderick simply says, do you want to get a bet against us? No, I don't. I'm fully invested in Villa, and I'll fully back us every single time. Kelvin says, Emery knows our biggest advantage is the lack of expectation, hence the constant downplaying of our chances. That's just good management. That's something you agree with?
Yeah, it goes back to what we were saying at the start of the show. Kind of not entertaining any talk about Champions League or title talk. Maybe that comes in the last 5 games of the season, but by then those Villa players will be so, if we are in the same position we're in, or in and around Champions League, maybe that comment of, okay, now we want to go for the Champions League, will just spark them into you know what, we can do this now, and we can win 5 games in a row, or whatever we need come the end of the season, like we did last season when, as you say, Dan, Villa are on such a good run. And it was like, when's Emery going to say it? When is he going to say we get European football? As soon as he says it, I know we had the little blip against Wolves and Man United, but we all knew that those final 3 games ultimately would come down to that anyway. And the players showed up, they turned up, and we got what we needed. So it's kind of like limit the pressure. And then at the end of the season, it kind of gives you that underdog mentality of like, we might be the outsiders for Champions League, but we know we can do it if we win a certain amount of matches. So yeah, I think it's good management as well.
Timothy says set pieces could really hurt them. Luton had 3 corners and scored from 2, which I fully agree with. I've said the same earlier, not on the podcast. Getting on David Raya at set pieces and stuff is big, especially if you can do that early doors and just get in his face, get McGinn playing some tricks on him, get physical. Like you said, Douglas Luiz shooting from one of the corners, or Yuri Tielemans shooting from 30 yards just to test the waters a little bit, I think is such an important thing to do. He also says, can you give a shout out to my daughter Bella as well? She loves the podcast. Yes, she's named after our mascot, which I love that. Bella and Timothy, thank you for tuning in every week.
And as well on that set piece stuff as well, Dan, I think it goes without saying that the Arsenal defence will be fully aware of the kind of rickets that Rye's making at the moment. So that's not going to fill them with particular, much confidence. At any point when Villa attack, they know that they're going to have to defend because, as Tom said, the Arsenal reporter, Villa need to shoot at every given opportunity, and the Arsenal defenders know that. So again, that's going to cause anxiety and whatnot. So yeah, I think it's one of those where if Villa can limit Arsenal going forward, I think they'll win the game, because I think they'll have so many chances and they'll create so many openings, because the Arsenal defence won't know how to cope with what Villa are going to give them, I don't think.
I actually think Ollie Watkins, who we've not mentioned, can possibly have a field day tomorrow. He's got a pretty good record against Arsenal. Running in behind, diagonal runs, being a nuisance, just getting about it. Obviously, he's got pace about him. I can see I'll do our predictions in a bit, but I've got Villa to win and Watkins on my score sheet. LZFTW says, what manager are you having in a combined 11?
Emery.
Not wait for the question, is it?
No question,
Better get out of here. Right, let's do our score predictions then. We've teased it a couple of times. As we said, we didn't do one for Man City, so no points distributed midweek, although I've been very open about the fact I said we'd have lost. And I think
you don't get any points. Fair enough.
Yeah, would you have said we won?
Can we get points? No, I was thinking a draw, to be fair.
Yeah, okay. So no points given for that, even though we didn't actually fill them in. So Arsenal at home, huge game. Could be Villa's 15th Premier League home win in a row. A club record would put Villa a point behind Arsenal in second place, potentially, depending on other results, which is unbelievable at this stage of the season. What scoreline are you going with, John? What's going to happen?
I'm going with a 3-2 Villa. And 3-2. I think it'll be one of those where, in my prediction anyway, I'm just imagining a 3-1 and then Arsenal kind of get a late goal and then it's very anxious for 10 minutes and then 5 minutes added time. 3-2 Villa. I think we'll score goals, so will Arsenal. But ultimately, this is a home game and Villa win their home games, don't they, usually? So, yeah, I just hope that we can break the record. It's something that, again, is 9 months in the making. There's so much to go into it and it kind of all comes down to this. And again, whatever the result is, we've made a fantastic start to the season, and I'm so enthused about what's going to come because of the Man City game. Even if we were to lose 3-0 to Arsenal, where you can kind of just say, well, we had 2 days to prepare. This isn't the Aston Villa team that we know, if that was to happen. So, yeah, whatever the result is, we move on. We go to Brentford after that, and, well, it was Zrinski, then Brentford. And we continue with the rest of the season. But, yeah, tomorrow I'm optimistic. So, yeah, 3-2 Villa.
3-2 Villa. Gavin says 2-1 Villa. Guy agrees with you. 3-2 Villa. Fingers crossed. Greg, 2-1 Villa. 2-1 Villa from MJ. US crits 3-2 Villa.
You only picking out the Villa wins, or?
No, this is all there is, mate. This is all there is. 4-1 Villa. Marine Boy, I would take another 1-0. So would I. Who cares what the scoreline is if we win? I'd love a clean sheet again. I'm going to go 2-1. I think Watkins to score both is what I'm going to go with. I think Watkins scored twice against Arsenal a couple of years ago in the lockdown year, I think. The black shirt. Arsenal will score, but Villa will score more. is what I base my prediction on. To get 6 points in a week would be unbelievable. And it is one that isn't a Villa win. 3-3, says Simon. Thriller. Head says draw, heart says win from Paul. So I think that's a good place to end it. Although, one final question from the comments that I saw earlier from Nick. Does John visit the same barber as the Villa team? Looking sharp. Little compliment for you, John.
I weren't expecting that. I remember when we did the live show. When we did the last live show? Was that before the start of the season?
It was June, I think.
Jesus, that long ago. That's mad. I had a dodgy haircut then. It was the day before, and I looked at it and I thought, oh dear. Right before the live show, wasn't happy. So yeah, I'm glad that someone's commented the trim. It needs a hair. I need a haircut. Sorry.
Yeah, me too.
Probably,
it's not.
It's that awkward part of the year though, because it's, do I get it before Christmas? It's like 2 weeks before. Or do I get it like 2 days before Christmas? Because you can't have 2 before Christmas. That's too much money. So I'm not too sure what to do about that. If I get to like the 22nd and it's a bit longer, I don't think it will look good at all. So. Anyway,
yeah, I don't think you got much to worry about, mate. Once you get to my age, you stop caring about these things with my hair, my hairline. Who cares? It'll all be gone in a year or two anyway. That'll do us for this bumper episode of Inside BODYMOOR. Absolutely loads jam-packed into the show. I'm hoping I've been able to put it together as best I can, given the fact we're obviously doing this live, a little bit less polished than usual when we do these pre-recorded. But I've enjoyed it, John, and I feel like you have too. And loads of comments get involved throughout as well. So clearly those watching live enjoyed as well. I'd love to say we'll do this live every single week, but circumstances don't always allow, and I do prefer being able to edit things out and get rid of mistakes and stuff. Like the start of the show was such a shambles that if that was what happens every record, we'd have done it, we'd have restarted it again, wouldn't we? And said, oh, I'm not having that. But you got no choice when it's live. We'll be back though tomorrow with another live show after the game. Me and Matt Kendrick, most likely. It's a 5:30 kickoff. So I don't know, 9:30 or something maybe off the top of my head. I can't quite work out the maths, but we'll be live at some point tomorrow evening, hopefully talking about 3 points for Villa, which would be unbelievable. I mean, what actually happens, by the way, if we win and we're sitting on, we're sitting second and 1 point behind Arsenal?
Yeah, I think to be fair, Liverpool, they play Palace and they should win. So Liverpool would probably go top and then would be, 2 points?
You say that, but Newcastle should beat Everton and Spurs should beat West Ham. Those are two
very
good results for us last night.
Something's happening at Palace. You've got Hodgson saying they're like spoiled and stuff, watching Roy Hodgson football, and they've got players like Eze and Elisa. Yeah, I think Liverpool are very good. So, there's reasons why Newcastle and Tottenham lost. I just think Liverpool will be up there at the end of the season. So will Arsenal, probably City as well. Hopefully Villa too.
Right, let's call it there. John, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks everyone for tuning in live, and thanks to Tom as well for contributing earlier in the show. Like I said, we'll be back tomorrow night to talk about all things Arsenal and Aston Villa once more. So we'll see you then. Cheers, everyone.